everyone. Welcome to this session on the 8 components of career planning. This is Uma. I'm one of the founders of The Star in Me, and I have my co-founder Mahua here with me. So we are very glad to welcome Angela Payne from Canada. She has over 2 decades of experience in the area of human capital management. She's worked with large firms like Monster, has headed human resources in several organizations. She has a lot of interest and passion in developing people and building leadership skills within them. She recently founded a venture called Lead HR, which is a leadership and development organization focused on emotional intelligence, which is a topic that is in spotlight during the current pandemic times. So Angela also leads, she's the president of Lean in Canada, which is another thing that she does around women professionals and developing them. So Angela, I think you will introduce yourself further too. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you. We're waiting to listen to you talk about career management.
Thank you. Thanks, Suma. Thank you, Mahua. I am so excited to talk to you guys today. This is one of the areas that I've spent most of my career in, which is around really career, development and how that works and having a plan. But I'm also most interested in supporting women. And I've spent most of my career either helping women in sales, women in tech, any of my internal women's mentorship programs for my companies. My current role as the president of Lean in Canada, which I just started, but I was working with the board as an advisor for a year. So these areas are very near and dear to me because I believe that while a lot of times women think that their work just goes noticed and they'll be, set because of their good work. I think there's a lot more deliberate, work that needs to be done by women in order to make sure that they're really, well prepared. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time just getting to know each other. I'm hoping that you can, in the chat box, just write where you're from. I'm sitting in Canada. It's morning for me. Hopefully, if you're in the evening, you're having perhaps a glass of wine beside your desk while you're listening. But either way, I'm hoping to spend the hour with you looking at really what I consider to be critical components of the career plan. And then really, as I see them, there's 8. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on a few more than others. And so hoping that, I'm just gonna look in the chat box here. Does anybody have where they're from? I will put mine. Nice. Thanks, Uma. Ah, okay. Excellent. Bangalore, and these are different areas of India. So I'm excited to have you all join and spend some time with me for sure. So let's figure out what we want to get out of the session. I've got a couple of reasons why I think you're attending, but let's make sure that if by the end you haven't gotten what you were hoping and you wanted to ask me a question, please let's do that in the chat. But I think you're probably attending, because you want to maybe validate the good plans that you already have. You maybe want to see if there's anything additional that you haven't thought of or considered. And maybe you want to delve into one of the topics or one of the areas a little bit deeper. And so whatever reason why you're here, I'm excited to capture and address that. And let's check out the 8 components. But first, I just wanted to look at, all the things that you wanted to be, perhaps when you were little. For me, I absolutely thought that I wanted to be a cat. There were so many, things that I loved about being a cat, which was sleeping in a pile in my room on clothes. My mother let me drink milk out of a bowl. I spent, I don't know how many weeks and days and holidays and Halloweens in a cat costume. But it was, as I grew older, and that was probably till at least I was 6 or 7. But as I got a little bit older, I realized that, there were other things that I wanted to be as well. And they included things like a real estate agent, a lawyer, a coach, a counselor, an entertainer, a recruiter. And I think that, all of these things, while they seemed disconnected, they had a lot of different elements that now as an adult, I see as being very interconnected. And there's a reason why they all appeal to me in different ways. And if you're like me, you thought, oh, geez, I want to be so many things. There's so many things that I could do. There's so many things that I could be great at. How do I decide? How do I think about them? What drives me to them? And, lots of times they were even, unconscious things that I perhaps thought about, a family lawyer and an entertainer. What do these really have in common? And as we go through, we'll start to articulate that a little bit. But, it really stems from what I believe is 8 core areas or 8 components of a career plan. And when I say career plan, what I mean is that, in a world where the average person spends, less than 4 years in a job, in a role, where the world is constantly reorganizing, where places like the World Economic Forum cites reskilling and upskilling critical for people over the next few years up to 2023. And that 54% of workers that are employed really feel that they're loyal to their organization, and they have a large willingness to change jobs or roles. And so, it's also the idea that it might be too expensive to stay in one career, meaning you miss opportunities for, salary growth. And, 3% on an increase of salary is not really going to get you where you need to be. And so you move. And all of this in conjunction with the fact that people have, more than 12 roles in their lifetime on average, really means that a career plan, or at least some sort of map or roadmap to help you understand some of the critical components of the plan, will help you, build that trajectory out. And it doesn't really mean that you need to have all 8 of these, nailed down with a time frame on them, when you do them and how you execute on them. But it really does mean that, over the next hour, just delving into them a little bit so that you can think about when you actively work on different parts of this. Because when you're intentional with your plan, you really get the benefit of understanding what drives you to different pieces and components. I know the platform and the Star in Me is doing great work in looking at the different pieces of this. So in mentorship, in personal brand, and in values, and that's all really good work. And I would encourage you to think about how you can delve into these. But this sort of puts together for you the holistic look of how these different components can really help drive you and help clarify for you what that would need to look like as you can continue through. So let's start with values. And if any of you have spent time understanding yourself and your values, it's really at the root of who you are, right? So really at the ability to understand that your values are what drives your career forward in that understanding. What compels you? What concepts act as your rock, right? Setting core values as your foundation is at the root of who you are, and it's what you consider when you're making a life decision. Many people say that, and certainly I would agree, that with your core values, if violated, those values, they're probably the things that you would quit a job over or leave a relationship for, right? By knowing them, it really gives you a compass, and that's available to you so you can understand what your priorities are. because core values really motivate everything you do, and they propel every decision that you make, sometimes even unconsciously. And I think that that's a great place to start. Many people that I talk to and many women that I coach, you know, have think about their values and certainly understand the concept of values, but are they the things that they've written down? Are they the things that they bring everything back to? And so many times the exercise of doing your core values or listing out your core values or aligning to your core values is a really great one, because it helps you understand sort of where you're going. So I want to take a couple of minutes, and if you have a pen and a piece of paper in front of you, I want to do a little exercise here that helps you. And for some, this might be easier than others because you actually have done this before, and so that's great. For some, this might be a new exercise. So I want to just look at this value list. It's got lots of things on it. It doesn't even have everything on it, but it has a good sampling of values. And there's ones that you will look at that you'll say, oh, that makes sense right away. But I want you to choose the words that stand out to you. So don't edit yourself. Don't regulate yourself to a small list. Just the ones that stand out to you well. Secondly, just take the words and group them together. So my advice to you would be not to take more than 5 groups. You know, try and keep it concise, but put your like words together. Group them together. Ones that really speak to you, ones that are really that resonate with you. And then as a third step, you know, choose the word that represents that group of values. So if you put fun and joy and you know, humor perhaps in one bucket, then maybe there's a you know, group or a word that represents that value, which is really around fun or you know, really around joy. And then, you know, there's you know, maybe enthusiasm and humor and these things inside of that one. Okay, did you take a look at that? Were you able to find a group there? Do you need a bit more time? Let's just take a little poll there if you want to just jump into the chat box. Were you able to group those together? Do you want to see the list again? Okay, so you can see the list. I think you've got now seen one. Great. Excellent. You know, for me, this really helped me, you know, deliver against what I know drives me when I'm looking for a role, what I'm looking for in my career. Because for me, accountability, curiosity, making a difference, and yes, my fourth one is really around joy, and so it has like happiness and fun and humor in it. But these are the ones that I know that when I'm looking at culture inside an organization, when I'm looking at a role, a team, a leader, these are similar values that I look for in the organization and that I look for in the person that I'm going to be, in the team that I'm going to be working with, because they help me to ensure that I know that I will have probably a higher success rate of really finding my joy in that space. And so it's what now drives all of my decisions Even when I'm, talking to my friends, even when I'm, considering networking and working with a group of women, I want to know that I'm making a difference, and I want the group to be accountable, and I want them to be a learning group. So they have to have a keen sense of curiosity. So let's keep going. Because when you get to the next component of the circle that we talked about, it's really around self-awareness. And in my work in emotional intelligence, we spend a lot of time working on self-awareness because it's really understanding who you are, right? And that values piece plays into that. Are you someone who sees your strengths and gaps? Do you put your others ahead of yourself in terms of understanding? Do you understand yourself? Do you understand the balance that it takes to be able to understand your emotions and people's emotions that you can see, right? Self-awareness really allows you to ask your things like, do I pay attention to how I'm feeling? Do I know what triggers my emotions? Do I know how my emotions affect my performance? And can I articulate to someone or to myself what I do well and what I'm still striving to do better in? And so lots of work on self-awareness. There's lots of even just programs on self-awareness, and some even cross that over into mindfulness. And I think that, the combination of these things as you start to build out your plan enables you to really hone in on the areas that start to make sense for you, because they're really born out of the things that you care about and that you really understand about yourself. So when we go to interests, it's a really important part. Okay, so we understand what drives us, what's at our core and our values. We have some self-awareness, and we understand, who we are. That's great. And that might have taken you a long time, or you might still be on that journey. But you also have to understand what your interests are, what makes you, gets you up in the morning. Because the reality is there's still a lot of work that needs to be done around your interests, what you love to do. And if you think about that, what makes you operate at your best, right? When you're experienced and you understand your true joy, then you get to place what many people call, and I call the sweet spot, where you have your best strengths. And it's the easiest, it has a sense of ease, right? That's your mental power that allows you to flow. And if you've thought about the concept of flow or heard the concept of flow before, it's about loving doing something that you lose track of time. Has that ever happened to you, where you literally are working on something that you find so much joy and pleasure in, that you're in your flow, that you get a genuine satisfaction? And this sort of state of consciousness that you have there is, you get really absorbed in the activity that you're doing and your creative abilities. That's flow, or your sweet spot. And it really lets you find, your effortless power. And it's a great place to be, because combined, as you can see, when you start to build these all together, this starts to give you the place where you can really shine with what many people call your superpowers, or what is your interest and what you love to do. So when you go beyond your interest, you get to your mission. Now, many people have this debate, and I have this debate lots of times with my clients around the difference between mission and purpose and your vision. And there's different things, people call them different things, and people use them in different ways. But when you're talking about your own personal mission, this is not your why, this is not your purpose. This is really around, what you're trying to achieve in the period of time that you are looking at your career plan, right? So what is the mission that you have around that? It doesn't have to be a title, right? I'm not necessarily talking about title. I'm talking about what it is that you want to do. Your personal mission statements lets you connect your values and your strengths and your talents and get to your career goals. Right? Knowing what you're trying to drive to as your mission statement allows you to look at each new opportunity and helps you decide if it's a good opportunity for you or not. So, yes, it tells you what you want to do perhaps with your life as it gets bigger, but it's really about at least the next phase of your career in the context of driving your career. And think about your mission as kind of your map. It helps you understand where you're looking to go. It's not to be confused with your values, because that's different. And your mission statement really is organic, right? It changes over time, and that's okay, because it's about where you're trying to get to in the next phase of your career. And so it's an important part, because when you can articulate that, then when you're talking to people, or when you get to some of the other steps that I want to talk about, like your board and your mentors and how you self-promote, then you can articulate that and be really confident in the way you speak to people about your mission, your vision, your mission and your values, and what drives you towards that.
Angela, there's a question on the chat window.
Yes, okay.
Is that right? Yeah.
Let me just take a look here. Sorry. There we go. Can you give an example of a mission statement? Sure. So for me, if I think about my mission statement, you know, and I'll just go back just so that we can see that. You know, for me, it has a lifelong piece for me, which is that I really want to, for me, I really want to be able to contribute by making a difference for women. So for me, my roles need to be a place where I can have an impact and work with women in a meaningful way. So for me, it's the jobs then that I look at, or the types of roles that I look at, are ones where I can influence or I can make a difference for women. So as an example, when I wanted to be a lawyer, this was because I wanted to actually be in family law, because I was interested in supporting women who were going through abuse. And my actual degree is in sociology, but it has a focus on women's studies. You know, my work as a recruiter was specifically around putting more women in engineering type roles. When I was an executive, I wanted to make sure that I had women in my sales department and women in my tech, because I was in an IT business. I was in a technical business with Monster. And when I was a coach, most of my clients are women. And so for me, because my values are tied to curiosity and making a difference, my mission is also to make sure that I use my talents to really make, you know, the world a better place for women. So that for me is how I articulate my mission statement. Does that answer your question? Awesome. She wrote yes. Good. And I think over time it can be different, as I said, right? So at its core for me, it's the same, but it shows up in different ways. It articulates itself in different ways. And so when I look at roles, and when I've looked at careers over my life, and I've already changed careers, you know, more than 4 times, you know, that is for me what has been constant. And so I'm now conscious of the fact that when I look at a role, I have to see these things in order to make it, you know, sustainable for me. Otherwise, it might be interesting for the time, but it won't sustain me for the long haul. All right. Thank you. Okay, so personal brand, and this is an interesting one, right? Because there is so much work on personal brand, and you know, building on your mission statement, building on your values, and how they play into it, focusing then on your personal brand. And you know, it's a little bit about, you know, why the world, you know, wants you to articulate your personal brand. If you look at the quote of Dan Schwabel, if you don't follow Dan Schwabel, he is a great personal brand expert. He spends a lot of time thinking about how the world, sees you and how you differentiate yourself. What I want to say about the personal brand piece is that it seems more complex in my world. It's like, what's the way people think about you? And so sometimes people ask me, well, how do you know what your personal brand is? How do you actually get to your personal brand? How do you articulate it? And I think there's two things. One, if you can't come to it on your own about what your personal brand is, ask your friends, ask your mate, your partner, ask your, your colleagues, ask them how they would describe you. And when you ask them that, you will get insight into how you show up and what your personal brand is. Now, it will be different, obviously, if the way your mate says it versus your partner says it versus your colleague, but there will be very common themes or insights that you can get out of that helps you build back. So that's it, one easy way to be able to do that. And another way is to remember that it's your story, right? It's your narrative. And I'm a big believer that if you don't like the story, then change it, because it's your story to tell. And that's the key about the personal brand. So your personal brand, while it may take you time for sure to build and to get where you want to go, if it's not exactly what you want it to be right now, not to fear, it is something, and you can continue to evolve that, and you can continue to work on that or create it the way you want it to look. And so many that are just starting out, spend a lot of time thinking about their personal brand and really articulating their brand. That's great. And many don't spend time on it and think that they don't have one, but in reality, you have a brand, you have a personal brand. If you're on any social media and you do any type of liking or posting or sharing or anything around where people see you, you already are creating a personal brand. And so go ahead. Was someone going to ask me something? No. Okay, sorry. So that's an interesting angle, right? I consider myself a global business executive, right? I'm a board member, an advisor. I'm empathetic. I'm curious. I'm accountable as a leader. My strengths include my ability to encourage teams and people through my leadership style. And, this style has really allowed me to build and grow and deliver results for my companies, Fortune 1000, Fortune 500 companies. And over my 20 years in the human capital space, I've done a lot of different kinds of roles that help me to support employees and the employee life cycle. And so I'm most proud about that. And that for me is the brand that I want people to think of me as. And it's the way I want people to be able to tell back the story about Angela Payne. And so I encourage you to sort of think about those same things. And I didn't get there on mine by building that myself, but more from asking people who gave me words about how they saw me or how they viewed me and what my strengths were. And I used that to create that story. Okay, so the other thing about personal brand, honestly, for the group on the phone, is that really it's got to be personal, right? It's got to be articulated as true and authentic to who you really are. Because if if you've seen a person's brand that doesn't really feel totally authentic, there's nothing worse than that either, because that that doesn't really ring true for you. And then, that seems not as strong. So I want to spend a little time on these next couple, because they're really critical to what I believe is the full package, right? Because people spend time on the front end. There's a very big component of actually then disseminating your brand and getting your brand out there. So what I consider the front end of the work, and then the back end of the work. And these next few are really the back end of the work. Once you've done the heavy lifting on the front, then there's a couple in your plan that you really want to have that you're very deliberate about. And this includes a board. Now, many people call it different things, right? It doesn't have to be a board of directors. I call it a board of directors, probably from all my years in corporate. But, you know, for me, this is a group of people who are your, you know, who are your go-to advisors. They're the people that, you know, help you think about your brand story, and they help you steer the car, using that sort of same analogy, if you will, of, you know, the map and now driving your career forward. This is really about helping you, you know, steer, because you know, this group even sort of opens with the road analogy, opens exits for you. They open opportunities for you. The role here is really to help you achieve your mission and reinforce your brand. That's what this group does for you. So they should be all different, right? They should be all different levels of seniority, different levels of professional background. They can be from your network. They can be from your, you know, peer group. Ideally, they're from across industries, they cross gender and ethnicity, and they really help you achieve what you want to do. So in some cases, they're big, and in some cases, they're smaller. They're not to be confused with a mentor or you know, mentorship. Really, they're different, they're distinct and unique, because they really are your kind of advisory team. So I have a question. Even if you don't call them a board of directors, do you have an identified, clear set of board that you have for your career? Just type it in the chat box if the answer is yes or no. But do you have a team that are really that you've identified clearly as that go-to group, regardless of what you call them? Okay, so I'm getting accountability partners, like that a lot, and that's a great way to describe them as well. So a couple of yeses for sure, some no's. I would encourage you to think about that group. I really like, and I'm not sure if I'm going to say Bengi, if I'm going to say your name properly or not, but I really like the accountability partners. I've heard that before, and I think it's a nice way to think about what that group does for you. And so that's great. It doesn't need to be a big board, honestly, ladies. Even if it's you know, 3 or, you know, 4 people, even if it's 2 to start, it really helps you bounce your ideas off them, and it really helps you to build out what you need as you think about your career at different times in different spaces. So that's your board. One of the things that is next around that, and many people talk about mentorship, is really the component of mentorship. And for me, these are very intense and unique relationships. I know I've been to many courses where they've talked about, you know, how you ask people to mentor, and, you know, that you need a mentor. And I have mixed emotions about this one, although I have a distinct point of view, which is given the right circumstances, I think mentorship is a wonderful relationship. I often think that people are, you know, don't know how to use it to its best ability, or don't know really what the clear goal is about mentorship. I think mentors obviously help you explore careers. They help you, you know, set goals. They can, you know, develop contacts for you. They can help, you know, as I said, you know, really develop your skills and identify resources for you. That's great. You know, refer you. This is wonderful, you know, wonderful work. But it's not always a lifetime relationship. It's not always, sometimes it is. It's not always just one way in terms of, you know, the mentee and the mentor. I have 2 relationships like this, and they're very different. They're very different in the fact that in one of them, it was really around a very specific time and space that the person needed. It was a gentleman who was really struggling to figure out his career and where he wanted to go. He was a new immigrant to Canada, and he was really trying to figure out how he could navigate the market, the economy, his skill sets. And in his mind, he was looking for mentorship, and that was great, but it was only really for a specific time, because when he landed, he needed a different kind of service. He needed a different kind of piece. And while I could still offer that, our relationship naturally moved and became less intense. Because we were, he was using my mentorship in a very specific way. Now, in my other relationship, this is a longer term and has been a longer term relationship, because this is about how this woman actually, moves the needle on her career. And so this is less time consuming, more check-in points along the way, but nonetheless, it is an ability for me to help her think about things that at different stages in her career are interesting. Now, they both use the word mentorship, and I think that it can be different things for different people. So I don't, many times I speak to young women who feel all this pressure to find a mentor and to understand, to have a mentor and just ask somebody to mentor them. And I think that now you're getting my point of view around that. I think that can be dangerous, because not always is the mentor equipped to be able to do that. And does the mentor understand what your real goals are? So my advice is to be really, really clear around what you're hoping to get out of the relationship, and what the outcomes would be for you, what success would look like, so that you guys can celebrate that along the way. And that enables somebody to decide whether they can really help you in a meaningful way or not, because ultimately that's what you're hoping to get. You're hoping to get from that. Having these relationships, I have to tell you, it's a gift to be to work with somebody in that type of role for the mentor, because I probably learn more than the person. The person gives me much more than I think that I give them. It's such a valuable relationship that makes it meaningful. And so I think that it can be very good. And I think you just need to be very deliberate about what you're asking and what the goals are of your ask when you talk to a potential mentor. The next one is self-promotion. Now, I have to tell you, I get mixed reviews. I do a piece on self-promotion in and of itself, as a standalone, and it's always one of the ones that I get the most. I don't know if it's pushback, but the most dialogue about, because it automatically presents itself in a way that says, oh, I don't do that. At the beginning, you heard me say that many times women just think that their work will speak for itself. And that's a statistical research that actually shows that many women believe that. And so this one I want to spend a little bit more time on. And of course, your brand and your mentors can really only do so much. It's your career, you're driving it, you really need to own it. And this is a place where self-promotion, can help. It is a proven fact that self-promotion advances careers. Most people in general, as a general statement, don't promote themselves and assume, as I said, that their work speaks for itself. And so I wanted just to check, by quick show of hands, even in your box, you can go to reactions and just put up a yes. The self-promotion, do you do it? Do you think you do it? Yes or no? You can either write it in the chat, or you can, you can put a reaction up with your hand. Garita, you do? Yes. Yes. Excellent. I'm very happy to see self-promotion. Excellent. Well, this group actually has more yes than no. And so I want to talk about the type and also give you a tool. I did notice that somebody had a question, which was around the difference between board and mentorship. So for me, the difference between board and mentorship is that a board is a group of people that you can go to at any time. You know, you bounce an idea off of. A mentor is sort of a long-term relationship that has actually a purpose. And that's why for me, I had defined mentorship a little differently. So the board is kind of your group, your people. You know, they're the ones that'll give you the straight goods. You know, they know you well. Your mentor is somebody who is, you know, can develop into a very big relationship, but is one voice and probably somebody who gives you kind of, you know, overarching relationship information or experience. So I think you can use them in very distinct ways. Many people, I would say, Biggie, that many people actually probably put these together, but I think they have different purposes at different times. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. Excellent. So I have some yeses and some nos on self-promotion, which is not unusual. Just shut that chat down so it's not in my way there. And so I want to think about it in a couple of ways, because self-promotion sometimes gets a bad rap, honestly. It has myths to it, or, you know, I want to sort of demystify some of these. But self-promotion is about communicating your contributions, right? It's about highlighting the outcomes of your work. It's really about increasing your chances of promotion if that's what you're after. And you know, you can think about it in a couple of ways. You know, women are really great at working hard, heads down, doing a good job. You know, studies show we've earned more college degrees than men since you know, since the mid 90s. You know, that nearly 40% of MBA students are women. You know, we're 50% of the paid workforce. And so you would think we're being rewarded for those efforts on a regular basis, right? And I say to you that I'm sure all of you know that, and you've read the stats, that in Fortune 500 firms, you know, only 15% of senior leaders, 3% of them of CEOs are women, and only 10% of women-owned, you know, firms, entrepreneurs receive equity capital in a meaningful way. And so not only that, but even our elected officials certainly in North America are overwhelmingly male. So the reality is that women and men promote themselves or do this in very different ways. And I think that that's a common mistake that women make, because they've done such great work in other ways to be able to articulate all the things that they want to, their brand, their mission, their values. And, you know, men outscore women hands down in understanding how to advance their careers. And women found that they, you know, in these same studies was, as I said, that they were likely to feel that their hard work is the key to get to the top. And so underestimating the value of self-promotion, I think is not wise, and it's a mistake. And what I want to do is talk about what self-promotion is and isn't. So, you know, self-promotion is making sure that you're talking about outcomes in your work. It is about, you know, using and showing what value you are to the team, to your, you know, boss, to your leader. And if you think about it this way, when you succeed, so does your manager, and actually so does the company, right? So sharing your results doesn't just make you look good, but it also makes your boss and the company look good as well. What self-promotion isn't is, you know, a simile for gloating or boasting. It's not advertising how smart you are, or, you know, even equating to bragging. But in the great words of Muhammad Ali, it's not bragging if you can back it up. And I completely agree. So I wanted just to look at a concept or a tool that you can use to really do self-promotion in a meaningful way. So for me, this tool of 3 up, 3 down, sorry, 3 up, 3 left, I apologize, is really about spending time articulating your value. And so it's about performance, right? Because it's focused on actions and outcomes. So the 3 up and 3 left tool are really a tool you can use in your quarterly feedback meetings that you set with your manager. And if you don't have these, I would encourage you to set them on your agenda to be able to do this technique. I use this for many of the women that I coach, and this is a way that they have deliberately set time to do self-promotion or to act on self-promotion in a very outcome focused way. And so, you know, it looks like this. You walk in with 3 high impact accomplishments from the quarter that you were just in, so the recent quarter that you were in and that you've kept track of. And, you know, many of us in the workplace understand action, result, impact. So using that sort of action, result, impact, you build out these 3 high impact accomplishments. And then you also identify 3 areas and ideas that you have on projects that you can work on for the next quarter. So these would be your 3 left, right? The 3 left, or what you're left with to be working on for the next quarter. So it's focused on outcomes, as I said, and I feel like it's guilt-free, because it's the same in the same conversation. You're talking about your 3 up, but you're also talking about your 3 left. And I'm not talking about that these are, you know, necessarily, you know, your biggest weaknesses there, but they're areas that you know yourself that you can still be working on and that you can continue to learn from. And so they're the ones that you're working towards. So let me give you an example, okay? So Glenda is my manager. I meet her on Tuesday, so I prepare, and as the operations manager, I have tons of responsibilities, both with people and with processes in my company. And I'm focused on these areas as my job as the operations manager. So, you know, you're super excited to meet Glenda. You're happy that you're meeting because you want to tell her about 3 areas of excellence that not only yourself, but that you and your team accomplished, and use the same action, result, impact to go through a couple of these, right? These 3 particular areas. And at the same time, you know, at the end of that component, it's this quarter, I'm also going to focus on some of my energy on getting to policy writing. It's an area that I know I need to continue to set time aside for, and it doesn't always come as naturally for me. So I'm going to spend time doing that this quarter. What do you think? And then you're asking for input on that idea, and you may actually get from your leader or boss a way to what they want you to focus on that quarter, which is, you know, also equally good, because it will highlight for you something that you think your bosses actually thinks that you could still continue to work on as well. So this puts words or gives action to your boss on the things that you're accomplishing. And you are in fact self-promoting, and you're very clearly identifying for them the things that you took action on, not only the result of those, but what your contribution were to those, and so the impact that you're having on the business, which is, you know, exceptional, and the best way that you can really articulate the really good work that you do. Does anybody have any questions on that particular one? I'll just pause there for a second. So 3 up, 3 left. And again, I would encourage you to try it. I've been doing it with my, my CEOs and anybody that I've reported to for, probably a good 5 years in my career. Maybe I did it a little bit subconsciously, or maybe I didn't do it at all before, or I did it half baked. Now I'm much more deliberate with it, and I'm actually, much more aligned to it, and I do it with purpose all the time, because with purpose comes the outcome that you want. Okay. So this really takes us to this idea that it's not that you need every component of this, as I said, nailed down with a actual timeline, with when you're going to get there, how you're going to get there. I mean, that's one way to approach it for sure. But I think it's, as we talked about at the beginning, it's all about understanding that the market and the world around us is changing so fast, that organizations are transforming so fast, and people are transforming their skills. And even if you think about where we are now in this current pandemic, how much learning and how much you're investing in your own development, how, you're being curious about different things. And that's true about the economy in general, and the experience that people are getting. I read the other day about this idea that it's the experience economy now, and that everybody's looking to understand the experience. And that goes along with the storytelling, the personal brand, the narrative, whatever that is for you. But it helps when you're grounded in an actual model or premise that enables you to think about the areas holistically. Because if you're just thinking about personal brand, great, good step. But the challenge is, then what do you do with the personal brand? How do you make the story sing? How do you tell the story? Well, you need other components, right? You need the board, or you need your tribe, your people to help you do that. You might need to be self-promoting, and you need to be networking, and as a consequence of all those things. And so, without one in isolation will get you far. All of them combined will get you propelling forward to where you really want to go. So I encourage you to think about these different areas and have these, more defined and more tight for yourself. And I'm happy to spend a little bit more time, and you can certainly reach out to me at any time to ask about it. And I'm certainly willing to answer a few questions, because we've got a few minutes left. But I want to spend just a moment thanking you for how we actually spent our time together, and think about whether or not, you're really ready for all the changes that are happening in the market. Are you really ready for, how the world is transforming? And, there's actions that you can take to be more ready. And I encourage you to think about those and to do those. Thank you.